Lads, we got a brand new sneak for you today. On May 3rd, 2023, the Devas of Creation devs shared yet another sneak on the progress of the game, but this time on their YouTube channel. This sneak was super juicy, and there's a lot to talk about on here. But real quick, here's a shout out to my members. Thank you, boys. Okay, let's break the sneak down. First, let's talk about the PvP Arena. In DOC, there's a new Olympic arena that allows players to participate in fights against other players for points towards their selected faction. Players are able to do 1v1s, 2v2s, and free-for-all, and can also spectate other players' fights, which that's actually a cool feature. This is similar to GPO's duel feature, but obviously, you know, not anime and not One Piece, you know, slightly less disgusting. Once a player joins a PVPQ, they'll be sent to the arena to fight against other players, depending on which mode, and I think their class as well, but not too sure about that. But we gotta take a minute to talk about the arena. This arena has a celestial feel. It has a cream and gold color scheme, which reminds me of video game depictions of Valhalla. Very cool. Now, I'm not much of a PvP kind of guy, but this looks like a lot of fun. Since there's a 1v1 and 2v2 mode, I wonder if there's going to be a 3v3 mode. But anyways, as players fight, their faction Devas watches them and gives the players an extra ability for use inside of the fight. By pressing T, players can activate their Deva Ultimate, which depending on the faction the player has chosen, gives you a different ability, but we'll talk about them in a bit. When a player wins a match, however, they are given points towards their faction and their rank. So for all of you sweaty PvP players, you might want to get ready since there's going to be a leaderboard. Just saying. There are also some smaller things that are shown in this part of the sneak, like combat styles, which share what weapons are used by the player, which is cool, but there's not enough information about them, so we'll talk about those later, like in another video. Moving on to the new mobs, we have a few new mobs that we can talk about. Arachnophobes, beware, there are now spiders inside of DOC. Inside of the catacombs, at least from the looks of it, there are now massive spiders to fight. As of right now, they're level 14 in the sneak, which the level isn't final, and they look very creepy. Like, I have the shivers just looking at them. We also get another glimpse of the Air Warlord mob that I've talked about in another video. The location, however, looks like it's in the catacombs. In case you're a newcomer to DOC, the catacombs is an area in the game that features bosses, mobs, and loot that players can fight and obtain. In the catacombs, players can fight Watchers, Air Warlords, Spiders, and the only boss that we know of as of right now, Biome. Besides all of that, there isn't much known about the area, so we're gonna have to guess the details. So here's what I think this area is. I think it is the catacombs, but the catacombs have different floors which feature different bosses and mobs and higher tier loot. Maybe it'll be an infinite mode that players can replay for loot and crafting materials. Obviously, I don't know since the game isn't out yet, so we'll have to wait until the game opens up. Now let's talk about the biggest thing that was shared in the sneak, the Deva. In DOC, there are 3 higher beings that are separated into different factions: Neld, Elaine, and Thar. They're the Deva in the game, and they all give different buffs and abilities depending on which faction you join. We'll talk about what their abilities are here soon, but depending on which faction you join, there is a cool animation of that specific Deva appearing behind you whenever you spawn into the player arena. Honestly, this little detail just gave me shivers. During the fights, the player is able to activate the Deva's ultimate, which will activate an ability that benefits the player. These abilities will be available to all players inside of the player arena with different abilities, or the same abilities with different buffs. I'm not exactly 100% sure about that, being available to players outside of the arena in PvE combats as well. The details on the abilities were not shared in the sneak, but rather on the Discord, which is where I'm getting this next bit of info. So if you want to keep up to date on the development of the game, then there will be a link to the DOC Discord server in the description. While you're at it, join my server, and also like the video and subscribe to stay up to date with uploads, since I'll be covering any future info whenever I get it, and I'll also be covering the release of the game. But anyways, let's get back on track. As confirmed by one of the devs, and also shared by one of the mods in the server, the Deva's ultimate abilities all have different abilities inside of the player arena, as we already talked about, of course. But let's start with Elaine. Hashtag team paper, by the ways. When Elaine's ability is activated, it can revive you if you activate it before you go down, saving you a life in PvP. Now that I'm recording this, I just remembered, wait, it was covered in the sneak. At least this one was. Some of the other details weren't, but anyways. Neld gives a debuff that silences the affected player if they stay within the radius of the player that activated, which prevents the use of abilities. This one I feel like is gonna be kinda toxic to use. But for Thar's ultimate, it's a hit scan fire ability that will do some extra damage to the enemy players. As of right now, it doesn't inflict a burn ability, but that's subject to change depending on the balancing. By the way, if you haven't checked out the previous sneak for Devas of Creation, then make sure to go check it out right here. This sneak featured a lot of the pets, so if you're interested, then go watch it. But either ways, thanks for watching.